I think we're recording here. Hi, and welcome to the Homeschool Happy Hour. This is a series of very informal chats with some of my favorite veteran homeschooling moms, women who inspired me on my family's homeschooling journey and showed our family some of the many different and wonderful ways there are to go about learning outside of the school structure. So right now we're in a time when lots of people are learning in a structure that they didn't plan on, and so we just wanted to share some of the different ways that you can go about it to find your family's path. So my guest today is my friend Erin Friedman, and I have known Erin for many years. I met her very early in my homeschooling journey when my kids were just kind of coming into school age, and her family always inspired me because they were just chasing passions all over the place. And Erin is the founder of Writing Homeschool Network. She's the mom of 3 wonderful grown kids, singer, songwriter, half of the band still married. She's a watercolor artist. She does all sorts of cooking extraordinary things and more. So welcome, Erin. Thank you so much for coming today and agreeing to chat with me.
Thank you so much. This is a topic that is very dear to my heart, so I'm happy to help.
Thank you so much. I'm hoping that we can show people some options that hopefully they can find a happy way in their family. So Erin, what kind of drew you into the homeschooling lifestyle in the first place? Because you went into it by choice, from what I recall. It wasn't I know you weren't thrown into it by a pandemic, but you weren't thrown into it otherwise, I don't think.
And it is nice to be able to choose that path. I realize now how fortunate I was to be able to look at all of my options. I had a newborn baby, and we did home birth and very family bed, very close-knit family activities and family. We had very family-centered life. And when my oldest daughter was approaching school age, all of our friends who were part of this lovely community of play groups and fun family things were then moving off to preschool and creating a very school-centered life as opposed to a family-centered life. And that was just not what I wanted. I wanted to continue a family-centered life. It was working really well. We were having fun, and I did not want to give that up. Did not want to have to focus my life on a school schedule instead of a family schedule. So that's how I kind of ended up in it. And I originally had planned we were going to be academic. We were going to get these kids to college first thing that we could. And I learned very early that a child-led learning style fit with who we were, and a relaxed homeschool made for a much happier family.
Awesome. I can really relate to both of those things. One, all of the friends that we had when my daughter hit school age, and they all started going to when they all started going to the preschool, and all of a sudden it was like 3 days a week they couldn't do play dates, and everything changed, and I didn't want to jump on that schedule either. And I also thought we were going to be very academic. I came across a notebook a couple of years ago when I was cleaning out some things, and I had a kind of a schedule that I thought was going to be my daughter's preschool schedule, and it's hilarious. It was like down to the half hour, and I don't remember writing it. I don't know who wrote it. I suppose it was me, but never happened.
We go through a lot of iterations as mamas.
Yeah. You kind of think things are going to go one way, and it's really nice when you can just lean into them. And that's actually one of my favorite things that's always stuck with me that you told me, and I think you probably encouraged a lot of parents in this route, was to just follow a curriculum of joy or something along those lines. And that always stuck with me, especially when we were trying to force something that wasn't joyful.
Yeah. Those lessons are, if you're open to listening to them, it's very clear when something is not working, when people are in tears, when people are pushing up against each other. It's like, oh, we can step back. There's nothing requiring us to make learning and education hard. It doesn't have to be.
It is amazing how much it can change day to day. Like something that was just a struggle one day, if it's presented another day, it flows, and the other way, back and forth. So I think that flexibility was huge in realizing that just because it didn't work one day didn't mean it would never work, and just because it worked one day didn't mean that it was going to be the path or that worked for both kids. That's definitely or all the kids.
Yeah, there's a huge variety when it comes to your own offspring. It's extremely humbling how different they are, and you just learn what personality, and it's a long, constant learning experience. It's not like, oh, you figure it out. It's a constant day to day because they're maturing. You're maturing as a parent, so it's a constant.
And even when they go into adulthood, it's just interesting because they're going to choose their path. So. Well, would you share a little bit about some typical homeschooling days? And I know that there's a wide variety of what your day, you didn't have a day-to-day schedule, but what were just kind of some highlights, or what was an average homeschool day for you guys?
We almost always started our days reading together. We read great literature. Both my boys were very late readers. So if they wanted if they wanted to be exposed to literature, if I wanted them exposed to literature, I had to read that. So we chose wonderful books and gathered together on the couch in PJs. That was usually how I got them out of bed. It's time to read. And it was always books that they wanted to read that we enjoyed. So we had a very rich, literature-rich life from the get-go. That was kind of the only thing that was a definite constant as they were growing up. After that, we did crafts, we did play outside. They self-directed most of my job as a parent is to leave things for them to find. Whether it was interesting books, it was Lego kits, it was just stuff, a telephone and a screwdriver. I didn't ever tell them, I want you to take that apart and take a look at that. I would just leave things for them to find. For my boys, that was just, they were a little contrary. So if I wanted them to do something, I had to be a little more creative about getting them. Had to make it look a little off limits. So I don't know what that is. Go take a look and see what it is. My daughter was very open to whatever I had in mind. Today we're going to go to a Latin workbook, which she loved.
Mm-hmm.
No, that was not something that they loved. So coming up with different things that worked for different people. And my boys were, they loved to move, they loved to build things, they loved to break things. And so we spent a lot of time outside. They built a lot of forts outside. Kind of just followed a fun childhood path. We did nature walks. They loved park days and lake days. They loved those things much more than I did. I and my daughter would be happy to stay home all the time. My boys are very social, so trying to find that balance of how much activity and how much stay home time we get. It's a constant family dynamic working out thing.
Yeah, because each person does.
Yeah. So they played a lot of games. They invented games. The one thing that I really appreciate about homeschooling is we could make it very personalized. My grandfather was a radio writer back in the golden age of radio. So I wanted my kids to know who he was. He was a big part of my growing up. And so I got all the old radio shows that he wrote, and they would listen to those. So they were exposed to this whole part of culture that other kids didn't get. And it shaped how they think about comedy. It shaped how they think about entertainment. So every family has these things that are important to the mama and the dad. And, whatever it is, you get the chance to bring it in and introduce the kids to it. And that then becomes a thread that reaches back and will go forward as well. So that's kind of a real bonus of homeschooling, is being able to personalize it to your passions and your family's passions. So we did a lot of cooking. That was important, sharing recipes from my grandma and passing that along, making matzo balls with the boys from a recipe from Craig's grandmother, those kind of things that were just educational and imparted important family messages. So it's those are the things that I remember that were fun.
Love it. So many of those things, people create these forced learning activities that really, it just, kids are learning all of the time, and you don't have to tell them and you don't have to force them. And often when you do force them, or try, um, it just closes the mouth. They don't want to learn it, or they think they're just learning it for a specific purpose, to jump through a hoop or take a test or something, rather than truly absorbing it. And I know I saw that more in, one of mine was a later reader as well. And we also would read books and books. And I didn't think that that one was really paying attention, because one was snuggled up on the couch by me and the other one was down building and destroying things. And I didn't think that there was any comprehension going on of what I was reading to the other one. But then I would hear a game they were playing later, and that child, who I didn't think was listening, was reenacting. And the reading aloud to them, I think, is huge, because there's that big window when even an earlier reader, uh, if they understand a good story, what they could read for themselves is not that good. Matt sat on the cat, whatever. They want a story, and that's what I really wanted for my kids to learn. So
and they just the rich language that they get exposed to in literature that they don't get from other things. So
yeah, and just the ability to craft a story is a wonderful trait that they can pick up out of that. So I also loved how many things that happened with building, and how much the kids can learn with those hands-on kinds of things, where if your mind gets in the way of looking for it, you start seeing the connections where, and I think that helps for people who come from any sort of like an educational background, where they're trying to make a connection, like, what are they learning? Are they whatever? And once you start opening to it, you can see those connections all over the place, what they're building and destroying.
yeah.
So what would you say was what were some of your favorite things about the homeschooling experience for your family?
Oh man, there was a lot. Being able to spend so much time together was a joy. I look back and I get to think I have no regrets about anything I missed.
Yeah.
I we have a business that we run, a retail business that is very, very busy in December, and the kids join us, and they learn where money comes from. They learn customer service skills, and they get to watch adults interacting, and they get to learn how that all works. And had they been going to school at that time of year, I would have missed seeing them. I mean, because we were so busy. So we get to just have them with us when they need to be there for us, and we need to be there for them. So it was a nice family project, having a business together, and excellent lessons. And they all, as they are now adults, thank us for those lessons, because they said they're trying to figure out why they are able to do what they can do now, and they think it was being exposed to the retail business at a time when they were growing up. They spent a lot of years there, just watching and listening and paying attention. And so that's been that was something that at the time I thought, oh, this is so terrible, they have to go to work with us. And now I realize what a gift it was.
Yeah, that's wonderful, because it's real hands-on learning in a real environment, that they could see so many things, how a business runs. And the customer service is huge, and interacting with people of multiple age. That's one thing that I appreciated about meeting homeschooling kids when mine were still younger, and I met teenagers who had homeschooled, and they could just as easily talk to an adult or a little kid. And that was wonderful. They didn't look at me like I was weird for talking to them. They would actually engage in a conversation.
Yeah, well, teenagers are some of my very favorite people. And when I hear people badmouth teenagers, I think, oh my goodness, I love that age. I think they're so interesting. And I've just been very fortunate to be around some great teenagers. So
They are entertaining. That's that's for sure. All of the ages are entertaining, and the ability to spend a lot of time together. There are times when you're like, these people are driving me crazy, but I noticed that when we got very busy and had too many things going on, we started disagreeing more. And it was like we just didn't have a rhythm of spending time together. And I appreciate very much, as having young adult children, when everybody comes home, we fall into our rhythm very quickly, and we're just very comfortable together. And I love the close-knit relationships that it developed. So.
Yes.
How about some hard parts? What were some of the more difficult things?
Hard part, definitely balancing the needs of each child. I had one who was very into academics and liked to just kind of sit and do stuff and stay home. And I had one boy who needed socialization, loved being with people, any people, all the time. Wakes up chatting all the
Oh,
time.
yeah.
It just doesn't work for us. So trying to balance that was hard. That was probably the hardest thing. As they got older, the scheduling, the driving, there was a lot of, I didn't appreciate how nice it was to just be home and do our own thing. When my older boys got into dance and they were doing competitions, and there was a lot of driving on my part, which was not as much fun as I thought it should be. But
Yeah,
that was
no,
definitely the hardest part. We actually dealt with very little judgmental aspects from society. Very early on, I learned to just let things roll off. If people were critical of homeschooling, you're not going to change people's minds necessarily. So I stopped trying to.
for sure. And I
And
think
just,
the kids speak for themselves, that who
yeah.
they are.
Yeah, I always say living joyfully is the best revenge. And that's what we did.
Wonderful. I didn't find the chauffeuring that great either, and I'm always baffled with folks who want to jump into it very young. They want to take their 3-year-old to 6 classes a week, and that just didn't sound fun to me. But everybody's got a different
Yeah.
path.
I always tell those mamas, buy some music and have a dance party at home, and then you don't have to go anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
At some point, yeah, they do have to go out, but I encourage people to just wait.
Yeah, and for me, I enjoyed the social activities where I got something out of it too. Like I loved Park Day and Lake Day because I got to chat, and I'm a chatty person, and I do like socializing, but on my own terms. I don't necessarily like being somewhere at a set time for a set amount of time, unless there's a clear goal. And as the kids get older, and they're actually wanting to go to a dance class, but I certainly was never going to bribe a kid to go, or try to argue so that I could drive them somewhere and pay someone money. That sounded awful.
I actually did have to bribe Max to take his first dance class. He assured me that he did not want to do this, but I knew him, and I knew he was a dancer from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
He's just contrary,
Uh-huh.
and I knew that. And I said, I paid for 6 weeks. You're going to take 6 weeks of this hour class, and if you hate it, that's the last you have to do. And after the first class, he said, "You know what? You're right. I like it."
And then he went on to be teaching dance within a few years, wasn't he? Teaching hip hop stuff.
He was teaching hip hop. He taught hip hop in Israel as well. So
Wow.
he really loved it. So
Yeah.
sometimes mamas do know best, but you got to just kind of sneak in there.
Yeah. I think most of the time mamas do know best if we're actually listening to ourselves and not what we think we're supposed to be doing. And if we're willing to realize something's working or not and roll with it.
Yeah.
So how can you talk a little bit about how you kept yourself in the picture when homeschooling? Because you had 3 kids at home, and it's very easy to get lost in all of these other people's needs and things like that. And I feel like you have done a very great job of being able to follow your own passions as well, which is really teaching by example for your kids.
I always encourage mamas to find a hobby and let your kids watch.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily have to join you, but to see that you are doing something important that is important to you, that just kind of example to me was huge. And when they were very young, I really did not do anything very creative. As they got a little bit older, I mean, what I enjoyed back when they were very young, I enjoyed cooking. I enjoyed letting them watch me cook and things like that. I got into music as they got a little bit older, and then we started a band, and they got to watch how that all worked. And then we canceled the cable, and because There was no reason for anybody to watch TV when we had musical instruments in the house. And interestingly, the boy who resisted the dance is now working. He's in his late 20s now, but he is singing and writing music and playing guitar and sending me sound files.
Oh,
But he was the one who wanted nothing to do with it at the time.
right.
So you never know how things are going to shake out. What he did learn from that is that his parents have interests that drive them and that excite them. And the world does not necessarily revolve around your kids' schedules. You can actually carve out some time of your own, and they can participate or not, but at least they can watch you do something that is important. And
Yeah. And it's very good for your own mental health as well, because it's really easy to
tremendous. Yes, there's you get to find out who you are after these really hard years of young kids, where who you are is just kind of an organizer and a disciplinarian and a cleaner upper.
yeah, and basically keeping people alive. Like that's your job for a while, is just to keep them from killing themselves. And
yeah. So I
yeah,
have been told I should have paid more attention, because there was at one point they wanted to use a sheet to jump off of the roof when the wind kicked up, and the boys were on the roof waiting for the wind. They said, "I don't know where you were, Mom, but you should have been paying more attention." I was probably in the studio. They're still alive. They didn't do it.
well, that's good. And I think in addition to like the time with yourself, the time with your partner, also I was, as you were talking, I was just thinking about that, because I was remembering something else that you said to me once. As the kids hit teenage years, it's really important to look at your partner and be like, oh, I still like this person. I still want to be with this person. And I think that's really easy to lose sight of in
Absolutely. Yeah. We've got a lot of changes.
there
And
is a lot of changes, and you can get so caught up in the day-to-day needs of these little people and society, just feeling like you're needing to do things a certain way, or the stakes, aside from what anyone else thinks, the stakes are high. You're raising people and you want to do a good job, so it's easy to kind of lose track of everything else. What would you tell a new parent just getting started into homeschooling? I mean, right now we're in this strange place of a pandemic where people have been thrown into schooling at home, and in many cases are suddenly having to do worksheets and packets and things that wasn't on their radar. They didn't want to do this, but do you have any suggestions?
it's kind of tough, because I know that they are required to do certain things. But my advice from my heart would be, decide the kind of people you want your children to be, the kind of adults you want them to be, the kind of qualities you want them to have. For us, we decided early on it was integrity, empathy, creativity, resilience, those kind of qualities, and find activities that you can share that will bring those qualities to the fore. Worksheets are nice if you have to turn something in, but they're not going to give you the quality, those kind of really big things that matter in the end. When I look at my adult children and I think about the things that matter, it was the life lessons. It was not phonics. It was the lessons that really matter. And I especially think in this moment, this crisis moment, that if they can learn to care and to be resilient, and that families lean on each other, and that we take care of each other, and as our community takes care of each other, if they can learn that, that is a successful homeschool curriculum for crisis schooling. Beyond that, everything else will shake out. Everything else is easily mastered once this crisis is passed. There's nothing you cannot make up after this.
Right.
But there's a lot of stuff that is happening. I know just for myself, I'm filled with anxiety. I can't imagine, as a parent of young children, how hard that would be to be trying to do curriculum when you're filled with anxiety. Maybe we need to just come together and help each other get through this with some joy. I mean, you can find some joy there, definitely.
Yeah.
But you may not find it in worksheets, and you may not find it in curriculum packets, but it's definitely there to be found. It's not unobtainable. It
Yeah.
is definitely.
And that's one thing that I've actually appreciated. I've heard several moms who were, busy moms who did enjoy time with their kids. They, in a normal time, but this situation that we're in has forced them to be spending a lot more time, and that's something they're really enjoying, is the slowing down and the not going to lessons every day and not doing everything. And they are reading books with their children, and they're cooking together and they're eating meals together, and all of those things are really nice. And like you say, there are certain requirements that different schools and institutions are asking of parents, and my hope is that they'll ask, the parents will ask questions right back, like, this isn't working, what else can we do instead? What's the minimum we can do right now? I know I heard from one mom of an 8-year-old who was worried about whether she should just hold him back a year because they couldn't fight about, and I was like, oh gosh, no. Don't, just enjoy your kid right now and just tell the teacher, like, we're going to have to find something different. We're going to have to, like, can I take a picture of what he built? Can I, like, how else can we do this? And I can't say that any of that will work or not work, but I think that the more parents who are asking, it will probably help the administration start thinking a little bit more creatively, because they do, in fact, want to get the dollars for the children, and they do want to promote them to the next grade. They don't want to have everybody fail. They're just reacting to a crisis.
Yeah, and they don't necessarily know how homeschooling how it looks. It looks very different than schooling.
Yes.
So it requires a big shift in everybody's thinking. And it starts with moms and kids, and it goes from there. So
yeah, definitely starts with the family. So. Well, would you like to touch on where your kids are now and how they're doing in the world? Because that's the thing that I think is really, I remember going through the journey of homeschooling myself and seeing kids older than mine. That was very helpful. And then I didn't even really think into adulthood, but now I think it's really nice to see their actual functioning adults out there. And I know that my kids in college and in the world, sometimes they'll get like, wow, you were homeschooled? And there's, people are surprised that, I don't know.
Yeah, people are continually surprised when my kids announce that they were homeschooled. All three are on very different paths. My daughter, two of my kids took the proficiency exam when they were 16 and ended up doing some college classes. Annie, the oldest, got an AA in music at the local college and became a massage therapist after that, and is now a mama, stay home homeschooling her own kids, and feel like we didn't even miss a beat going with the grandchildren. Max had no interest in college, no interest in the proficiency exam. He's my one who creates a path. And he took a trip to Israel, and in Israel, he decided to stay there for good. And he stayed for 3 years. And while he was there, he learned the plumbing trade. And so when he came back to this country, he went to work at a plumbing company. And so he's a plumber. He fixes things and he breaks things. It's exactly what he did as he was growing up.
I was just thinking that's him at 7, and that's him as an adult. But now he gets paid money.
That's right. And he loved to be the hero. He loves to come in and fix your problems. And he's also very personable. That's what the plumbing company that he works for hired him, because he's very good at customer service.
Yeah.
That was interesting to see that translated into a good job for him. And Joe is my dancer. He is a professional dancer, kind of waylaid by the pandemic at the moment, but is living in Los Angeles and got his first cruise contract when he was 19. And because of homeschooling, he was able to focus on dance from the time he was 16, and just worked really hard and is still working really hard all the time. So, and resilience is a huge important lesson of this whole pandemic. And he showed up here after being away, kind of stuck in Georgia, where when he went on a trip, and then the whole world just kind of stopped turning for a moment, and came back, and he's got some ideas about what he wants to do with his time away from actual work, producing videos and things like that. He said, there's opportunities in everything, and that's what I love for my kids to understand, and to have come away as adults with, yeah, this is a hard, tough thing. And it's same with the homeschooling. This is a hard, tough thing, but it's an opportunity. And so hopefully everyone will find their way, navigate through that with everything that comes with it, which is can be hard. I know it's hard.
Yeah, I think it can be very hard, and I love seeing, like, resilience was the word that you mentioned, and just flexibility. And I've definitely seen that there are people who just kind of have inherently either they've been surrounded by this, or they figured out how to entertain themselves, how to make things, do things, take things apart, put things back together, and just kind of that spark of wanting to learn that's alive. And yeah, so I love seeing that in the people of all ages, and I love that that's still alive in your grown children, and now going in your grandkids too. So
yeah, and my daughter Annie is doing all sorts of repurposing things. She is creating her own sourdough starter and baking things, and just making the most of this. And it's just interesting to see how it all plays out. And
it does kind of go back to that interest-led learning, that kind of just following passions and following joys and just checking things out. And one blessing that we have right now is we have the internet, and which is a blessing and a curse, because we could spend a lot of time doing ridiculous things, but just the ability to learn anything and just try things and play with things. And yeah, I think I've appreciated the fact that I've hoarded too many craft supplies over the years, so I have all kinds of stuff to make and do, and I can make it all badly, and it doesn't matter because I'm just sitting here anyway.
It lasts. I pull stuff out for my grandkids that I purchased 20 years ago for my own children. So hang on to it. Come in handy.
It does. Being a hoarder rocks. Thank you so much, Erin. I really appreciated chatting with you today. Do you have anything else you want to?
No, my advice is always seek joy, and everything else falls into play. It really does.
It does make a huge difference, and I know that one stuck with me for years, in just trying to remember when I was thinking, what should my kids be doing? Are they doing something? What's happening? Especially when they're such different human beings, and sometimes you can see the clear, this is what it's supposed to look like, and sometimes you're like, this is not what so it's really, that was helpful for me to just seek the joy, and it is a joy now to see my kids out in the world and your kids out in the world chasing their own passion. So good luck to all the other people out there, I guess.
Thank you so much.
All right, I'm going to turn us off, and then that's it. Thank you.